My name's Alison Thomas and I'm one of the directors for Man in Sepsis, and this is my sepsis story. In May 2016, I had routine surgery to repair an umbilical hernia which I had sustained during pregnancy. The operation was successful and I was home later on that evening, and recovery was good until 6 days later. I started experiencing quite a lot of abdominal pain. I was really feeling quite unwell. This was only 6 days after my surgery. Later that evening, I went for a shower, and that's when I noticed a purple swelling above the incision area, more like a purple egg. And I thought, my first reaction was infection. So with feeling unwell and all the pain I was experiencing, I took myself up to the out-of-hours doctors, where I was admitted to hospital with a suspected rupture of the repair site. A couple of days was spent in hospital where they swabbed my wound, and regular observations were taken along with x-rays and an ultrasound scan, where it was found that I hadn't ruptured the hernia repair site. I had in fact developed a hematoma. So that was all fine, and I was sent home later on that evening with some antibiotics as a precaution. 14 hours later, the next morning, I noticed that the purple swelling had become larger in area and quite pink. Being a police officer, I thought to myself, come on, think logically now. It wasn't infected yesterday, 14 hours ago, and you're on antibiotics, so stop worrying. The following day, the pink area had turned purple and it was starting to spread, and I really didn't feel very well at all. The next day, the area that was purple had become very large, spanning most of my stomach area, in fact, and was red. The hematoma was large, it was quite big, and I really couldn't stand the pain at all. It was absolutely unbearable. So I rang my GP for an emergency appointment, and I was seen later that day. I saw my GP and he examined my stomach, and I asked for stronger painkillers. I really couldn't cope with the pain. I was given tramadol, but unfortunately, tramadol didn't even touch the pain. It didn't even take the edge off, in fact, and I just couldn't cope with the pain. The next morning, I woke up and I thought, oh, okay. On top of all this, I now have a really heavy cold. My whole body ached. It was so painful to move. I felt every time I did move, my bones were breaking. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get warm. I was so cold. I don't remember much about that day, except that my wound, I thought, looked better. It was more marbled and not as red. I spent the day on the couch. In and out of sleep. But towards the evening, I just couldn't cope with the pain anymore. When my husband came home and saw me, he rang for meds straight away. And a few hours later, they rang back and said, come up, we need to see you. I'm so grateful to the doctor that did see me in meds, because all I remember saying to her was, I'm not a wimp, doctor, but I can't stand the pain. And she said to me, Ali, you're not a wimp. I know exactly what you've got. You've got sepsis, and you're a very poorly lady. And with that, I was taken straight through to resource and started on IV antibiotics. I don't remember much about it, other than there was this sense of urgency. The following day, I was examined by the on-call surgeon, who said that they'll have me in surgery within the hour, because the hematoma I had turned into an abscess, which had caused surrounding cellulitis infection, which had led to sepsis. So we were fighting three things. Before I went for surgery, I had this overwhelming, crushing feeling which had started in the middle of my thighs, and it went up through my body as though I was being crushed by a roller, and it went up to my neck, and I thought I was about to have a heart attack. You know when they say you get that overwhelming feeling of impending doom? Well, that was it for me, and I thought, this is it. This is the end of the line for you. And I was trying desperately to press the buzzer, which was next to my right shoulder, to try and alert the staff, but I just couldn't press it. I tried and tried, and I thought, this is it, Ali. You're not going to make it through this, and you're not going to see your children again. Fortunately, the lady opposite me in the next bed knew that I was in trouble, and she ran and got help. The staff were quick to respond and gave me oxygen and GTN spray, amongst other things I can't remember now, and bloods were taken for suspected heart damage. Thankfully, that later came back as negative, so that's a big relief. I was taken for surgery soon after that, and the abscess was drained. But I spent the next week in hospital with intravenous antibiotics, and because of the large hole in my stomach that I now had, they managed to get me a vacuum pack, which allowed me to go home and start the healing process faster, thanks to this vacuum pack. A few weeks later, I came in and had my third surgery to scrape what was left of the wound clean and sewn back up again. And although I'm now physically healed, I still suffer with post-sepsis syndrome, especially chronic fatigue, which is just one of the worst ever. I get recurrent infections, and I'm struggling with short-term memory loss. It was whilst I was recovering at home, I read about a young lady called Anne who had lost her life to sepsis, and I contacted her parents, and through that meeting with Dee and John Struthers, Man in Sepsis was later formally registered as a Manx charity. I felt so strongly whilst I was lying in my hospital bed that you can't be given something like this in life and not do something with it. And by me sharing my story, and with John and Dee, we can get the awareness out there and hopefully save lives. I'm so grateful to the doctor that recognised my signs and symptoms in meds that night, and to the surgery team that came in that Sunday morning, and all the staff on Ward 2 who were absolutely amazing in my recovery. I'm pleased to say, obviously, I've survived, but because of this, I haven't recovered fully enough to continue with my police career of 17 years, and I was medically pensioned off earlier this year. But to still be alive today to tell my story and help raise awareness, still be a mother to my 2 children, I couldn't ask for better, really. Thank you.